What's up, y'all? I've got some good news for you today. We have Ricky Jordan in the house. This man landed a 75K fully remote tech sales role in just 10 days. He's here to tell us all about his experience with the Sword program. Ricky, what's up, man?
Man, I'm great, doing great. All glory be the Father. I'm just earlier. It's like I'm still in a dream a little bit. Got to pinch myself just to process what has happened. But just getting placed in front of the right people at the right time, and God's timing is perfect.
Amazing.
So
It
excited,
is.
man.
It is amazing. So tell us, like, what were you doing before Sword again? So you were teaching, you were coaching, you had been trying to get into tech sales. Break down kind of the before for us.
Yeah, so 21 years in education. Been a teacher, elementary school, middle school, tutored from grades 1 through high school, coached at the high school level. So all the things. And, and in education, if you're a talented person and a hard worker, they're going to tap you in many different areas. So I love sports, from Indiana. So basketball was my passion, started coaching basketball, but in the school I was at needed a soccer coach, and then I needed somebody to be an assistant football coach. And then I'm doing all the summer programs. And so I was just doing that year round,
Yeah.
while I formed my students. It was, just finding myself getting to that point of, all the work that I'm putting in, there's a cap to where I can fully reach. And I was really robbing my family of the person I needed to be at home, the husband that I was called to be, and the father I was called to be. And, that just kind of led me to think, what can I do outside of teaching? And there'd been a voice, and I firmly believe it's probably the Holy Spirit pushing me to get there. But I was in that comfort zone, and I was just like, you know what? I'm good at it. I'm continuing to do these things. I'm going to push back again. And
Mhm.
then, I got pushed out of that comfort zone and I had to find other solutions. And, I've been looking at tech sales, like kind of landed on that as a place that I could go.
Yeah.
Didn't have a whole lot of success with a lot of interviews. I landed a couple, and I just said if I could just get in front of people, I know that my personality and my drive, I know that I can do this job. And I got kind of far in a couple of interviews,
Yeah.
but just I think at the end, the lack of hard sales experience held me back, and
Mm.
I just was, I needed to find out how to communicate my value, my worth that I knew that I had, that I knew that I possessed, and
Yeah.
to articulate that in a clear way.
How many apps ballpark do you think you put out total? Like
There was
before
like the
Sword, of
whole
course.
yeah. So, I mean, it was a whole learning process, like jumping
Yeah.
from education. I had, really when I went on an interview when I was a teacher, it was just a formal hiring process because I would get in the
Yeah.
room, they'd be like, oh, this guy's awesome. So,
Yeah.
I kind of had to learn what the application process was. So there was a lot of pray and pray, what I call at the beginning,
Okay.
and then after that, I would say ballpark maybe 50 to 60, pray and pray was early. Like I was just like, oh, I'll apply to that one. And there
Yeah.
was just like no rhyme or reason. I was like, "Oh, that sounds like something I could do, apply
Yeah.
that one." But once I kind of was like, "Okay, let's focus it in 50 to 60, somewhere in there, probably."
Okay. Okay. And how many interviews from like 50 or 60 dialed applications?
3, probably
3 total?
3, yeah,
Okay.
and then
And
yeah.
and you moved, like, to what stages? Ballpark is fine, but out of the 3, did you move late stage with any of them?
Yeah, one of them I got down to they told me I was in the final 2. It was
Okay.
between came down to me and another candidate, and that was a long process. I went from one screening down to another interview, down to another one, and I'm doing research. I'm like, I could really, and it was right in my wheelhouse. I was in my school, I had the highest growth percentile scores for students, and I became a math RTI teacher. And
Mm,
this position was RTI software, and I was like, dude, this is
mm,
my language. I know I can do this. I know that I can deliver. I love having conversations with educators.
yeah.
And yeah, it just, it got down to that last part, and they went with somebody with more sales experience. They just said, we
How
like you, but
how was your headspace after that? Like, were you crushed and deflated, or were you like, "Eh, I'll just keep applying?"
I got a little rejuvenated. I was like, okay, all right, because once I applied to that one, I was like, okay, this is something that I think I can do. I took, before that class, I took a couple of sales tech online classes. Then after I didn't get that one, I thought that was the answer. That was the solution. Okay, I'm just going to do a whole bunch more online classes.
Mm,
And so I got kind of rejuvenated after that one. I was like, didn't make it. I was, a little downtrodden. I was like, okay, so you've made ground now. You've made some progress. Now let's continue to apply that. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to educate myself. I'm a lifelong learner. I love learning. Whenever I take courses, I take like 33 pages of handwritten notes and I
mhm.
type reflections. So I'm like, all right, I can just grind my way to really learning all this stuff and get into it.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
after that one, I got to an interview and I made it past, I didn't get to the, what I call the final boss. I didn't make it the
Yeah.
final boss. I made it to like the semifinals. So,
Ah,
for it.
okay.
And in that one, that's the one where, and after that, I just pray. I'm like, Lord Father, I believe in my soul that I can do this. I believe you've given me the talents to have the drive, to have the passion to, you've given me these qualities and skills. I tell my own kids that God's given us each little different talents and gifts to apply.
Yes.
We learn what those are and we take them with them. And my prayer was, help me to communicate my value, my worth, help me to find, somebody or someone that can help me get across that finish line. Because
Mm,
with this company, this last one, I said I was in the red zone, little football analogy. I was at the 20. The
yeah.
program before that, I was like on the 2 yard line. And I was like, man, I just can't get across the end zone. I
Can't
know
punch
I
it
can do
in.
this.
Yeah.
I can punch it
Yeah.
in. Yeah. Mm.
Okay. So all in all, hundreds of applications because you said you were mass applying to over a couple months span, right? Was it like
Right.
half 6 months or so?
Yeah. Yeah. That.
Around
Mhm.
6 months. Okay. And you get down to 3 interviews, two go late stage. You can't punch it in though. Frustrated, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Okay. So what kind of led you to Sword then? I mean, obviously it sounds like prayer and the Lord were involved, which is great, right?
Yeah.
That's like the
Yeah.
most important thing. But there's so many coaching programs out there. There's like these SDR boot camps, like pay $500, we'll help you get a job, that kind of stuff. Sword's different and it's different on purpose. Why did you ultimately land on Sword?
Yeah, so I mean, it was through prayer and someone that I didn't even have a natural connection with on LinkedIn mentioned your name, and then I researched it and I saw the one-on-one coaching component,
Yeah.
how you can get one-on-one individual attention, and I thrive on feedback, I thrive on instruction. I'm a coach myself, and I think back to people that really invested in me, like I could grow from when I get that. Hey, you're right there, but this is what you need to do to
Yeah.
improve it. And there was just, I knew that having that one-on-one time with someone that, been in that role before and just, and quite honestly, also, the faith component was a big selling point for me as well. Having someone that is also a follower and a believer in Christ and knowing that their principles are aligned with what my values are was a very important key component as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I love working with everyone, but I love working with other believers because we get to be very intentional about like, hey, if God's not in it, it's not going to happen. Like he's
Right.
at the center, right? I got you. Okay, so what would you say life is like after Sword? I know this is just 10 days that we
Right.
kind of did work like very quick, but I mean, what's life like now?
It's going so fast, and I'm really trying to be, just take that time just to say prayers of thanks. I'm just so thankful. Like the big thing was relief, after the process was done, but it was also like a celebration, early on in this process, as I went through my whole transformation of what was going on, the word that I kept hearing was victory, wearing my Tiger Woods red Nike here for victory. And it was just that sense of accomplishment. Like,
Yeah.
dude, I knew that I could do this. I knew that given the chance, given the right message to get across, I could do this. So, I mean, relief is one of them, but also, accomplishment, victory, pride, and
Yeah.
and now like invigoration, because now it's like, dude, here's what the job is. You're starting on this day. I'm already emailing like, hey, what else can I do to get ahead? What can I do between now and then? And
Yeah.
so now it's just like it's another fire's been lit and I'm just ready to hit the ground running.
It's game time. Come on.
Yeah, buddy.
You're in the right mindset now for it too, which is
Yeah.
awesome. What did your wife say? Like, was she kind of skeptical? Like, hey, this is a big investment, one-on-one coaching. What is she
Yeah.
saying now that you got the job?
No, it was funny, like, when we had our initial conversation, if you recall, but you had asked the question, and I deliberately paused in that moment. And it was a long pause because I'm just sitting there trying to talk, to the Holy Spirit and to, just kind of pray and think through. And, it was, an investment, but it was an investment in myself. And putting myself in front of my family's needs is something I was like, man, I know that I have to do this, but
Mm.
it's something I really got to think through. And with any big decision, I always say I go to the Lord and I go to my wife. If any big decision, I go to God and go to my wife. And so, we had our talk and you're like, here, I'll schedule a follow up, go talk to your wife and get some things, thought through. Here's our follow up at 3 o'clock. And, I told her the situation, and within 3 minutes, like probably less than 3 minutes, she was like, Ricky, if this is what you think, you need to do, and, this is where God is leading you, just do it. I think this is the right move. And that was like a total God thing right there. Just, saying,
Wow.
put it at ease, man. I think the old adage of, someone praying to God for solutions, and God's like, well, I sent you a boat, sent you a helicopter, and sent you a raft, and you just kept waiting for me to come save you. Well,
Yeah.
here's the boat, get in. And that was my wife just being like, here it is. You've
Yeah.
got the skills you need. It sounds like this guy's going to help you get to where you need to be. And it wasn't even no doubt on her end at all. I
What an
told her,
amazing life. Wow.
yeah.
What has she said now? Like when you told her you got the job, was she like, "Hey, I told you so," like, "Good job," or were you like, "Okay, good, I was a little nervous?"
She was confident. She knows me and my character.
Yeah.
I think the thing that was discouraging, for her is knowing how much of a drive that I have, and I haven't been able to, put it in the proper place of where it needed to be. As far as work, I've taken that drive though and done it all here at home and whatnot. But she knows my soul needs to grow and thrive.
Yeah.
And she was just happy, like she got home, she was at work. And so I couldn't tell her face to face when it first happened. My daughter was homesick. So I got to go celebrate with her. But, when she got home, it was just a big hug, and just,
Mm.
just relief and joy and, peace and excitement.
Man, I'm getting emotional right now because it's just beautiful to have your wife believe in you, right? And
Mhm,
I think that's what it comes down to. Like, you were willing to bet on yourself and believe in yourself. You knew you could do it.
mhm.
And to have her support and then to actually see the blessing come through 10 days later is like so
Crazy.
confirming. It's like it's amazing. A
Yeah.
lot of guys I talk to, and not just guys, a lot of people I talk to, they're on that call like you and I had, right? They know they wanna make a change, they're not happy with where they are, but they're really on the fence, and a lot of people end
Mhm.
up walking away from the fence and not jumping over,
Yeah.
and, whether it's fear of failure or they've never, like, done coaching, they've never invested in themselves, maybe they are afraid to, like, have that conversation with their spouse. What would you tell that person who's on the fence joining Sword?
Yeah, I would just, with me, all big decisions, pray to your significant other, whoever that is, bring all big decisions there to get peace and comfort in your mind. And for me, it was knowing that I needed that extra push to get across, that if something wasn't clicking for me. It wasn't getting there. And I knew that I had the capabilities, for anybody that's on the fence, it's an investment, but it's an investment in yourself. It's an investment in your future. It's an investment for the life that you want to lead for yourself or your family, whether you're a young single male without a family or, like me, grizzled veteran married father of three, it's you're really looking to, invest it towards your future. We spend, time and money and resources on plenty of frivolous things. This I see as an investment, just like when I invest in my children's 529C, it's going to sprout, those years later. This is an
Yeah.
investment 2025 that's going to have dividends that pay off years down the road. And it's an investment in yourself and, where your talents can go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you think about it that way, it's like, well, how much would I pay a month to work from home? Probably a
Mhm.
decent amount. How much
Right.
would I pay a month to go make more money? That's a no-brainer. How much
Mhm.
would I pay to be a more present father for my
Yeah.
children? And I'm not working every day and I get to
Mhm.
invest in them and grow up. Like, I don't know, that stuff's priceless. And,
No.
you having the courage to bet on yourself and just believe that you could do it. That's why you're here, man. And,
Yeah.
in 10 days too, that's just your work ethic, man. So
Mhm.
good job. I am curious
Yeah.
to hear, like, coming into a new industry. I know you had some experience with tech sales in terms of the research and applying for jobs, but what were you most worried about in this transition? And what do you think actually helped you overcome that in the sword program?
I've learned, the traits of, what an SDR entails, the building of the pipeline, the needing to create sequences. I kind of learned all of the theory behind it, but didn't have as much application, taking lots of notes and watching lots of videos and doing that. But it was kind of like that, technical application process of it. And, I think the sword, when we get into Apollo and you really kind of go through and create those sequences and you do the outreach, call the hiring managers, you send those emails, you send them to those LinkedIn's, you make those personalized, video intros that are personal to you. You tell your personal story. The way that you kind of broke down for me, I'm a natural storyteller.
Mm,
But, I'm also sometimes a long-winded storyteller, so given a framework to put that into place, to tell that eloquently was important and essential, so taking, all the tools that are provided and just growing it from there, I think
yeah.
yeah, and then the one-on-one aspect was huge as well, is knowing
Mm,
that, whatever the issue was, I had somebody that, I could bounce something off of that's
mm,
been there in that position or been there in that leadership role that could, hey, this is what I see from my perspective. Here's what you need to work on here. That was so valuable for me, is just, needing that person to come in, like you said, get in the BMW and give me the ticket and tell me which way to go, be
yeah.
there in the passenger seat with me. And it was just, I knew that I was on the right track, but I didn't have the directions exactly. It was like,
Yeah.
I'm in the neighborhood, but I need to go about 3 blocks over and 2 blocks north to get there. And
Yeah.
that's what Sword kind of provided for me, was those
Mm,
fine details, of everything that I talked about, just telling the
yeah.
story, getting the resume right, pinning down your LinkedIn, those putting those three essential things in your LinkedIn profile that are, important drivers for you. And,
Mm,
just kind of communicating that on a professional level. All those
yeah.
all the little things, man. I could probably spend 20 minutes just kind of going through each part. And I'm a list person as well. So having that list, here's a curriculum that you'd go through. And, I was just kind of checking the things off. And then it was like, oh, here's an application. Now go to phase 4. And so it jolted me a little bit, because sometimes I can go, I've got to go down this list. No, this was just like, there you go. All right. You're pushing you off into the deep end. Let's go, sink or
Walk
swim.
on to the next step.
And it was
Yeah.
time to swim, and you weren't gonna let me sink. It was just like, whenever there was, a question or something like that, I could reach out, and there was feedback, and that was important, because during this whole process, it can be kind of isolating without, a program like this in place. You're
Sure.
you're trying to think, I've got to find all the answers, I got to find all the solutions. And now I've got a lot of the tools and the skills, but I have somebody that can help me with those answers.
Yeah. Yeah. I like really what you said about it gave you an opportunity to actually do the job, because
Yeah.
so many people I talk to, they've seen all the YouTube videos. They know, like, I know what an SDR does, but have you ever actually picked up the phone and called a manager? Probably not. And maybe that's fear, but maybe it's also just lack of knowledge of, like, well, I don't
Yeah.
even know where to find a phone number. If you don't do it, you're not going to actually know if it's for
Hmm.
you or not. And so you
Yeah.
were able to just jump in super eager, like, "Hey, Jack, you tell me what to do. I'm gonna go do it." And that's why it
Right.
got done so well and so quickly. So
Yeah.
I
And
did
that
wanna
was
ask. Yeah,
I
yeah.
was gonna say, the big thing, like, it was with this job that I landed, the program encouraged you to contact SDRs. And so, I just went through and I went on Apollo and found out who were the SDRs, and I reached out to one. Great conversation with him, told him, hey, I'm a former teacher. He's like, oh, hey, we just, got somebody started here a few months ago. It's a former teacher. Let me put you in contact with her. In contact with her, took down some notes, learned more about the company, be more, knowledge base there. Someone else that had been through the Sword Academy was working there, connected with him. So just kind of really, gave me a bigger sense of that company. Because
Mhm.
going before, it was like a supply chain management company. Only thing I knew about supply chain management is my dad used to be a truck driver, and, he would take things from one place to the next. But this gave me a holistic view of the company. I was able to see from insiders what their viewpoint was of the company, of the leadership that I'd be talking to in the interviews.
Mm.
It just reaffirmed to me, yeah, dude, this full speed ahead, full speed ahead. This is where you need to be. Hit the accelerator.
Yeah, and you did it, man. You got there. Working one-on-one with me, you kinda mentioned, like, I'm always there and I'm able to provide
Yeah.
feedback, all of that. What's something that stuck out to you maybe about my coaching style? And especially you as a coach, I'm curious to hear this answer.
The honest and, ready feedback. It was, when I was doing like the slide deck, like the first time I did a slide deck, I'm very meticulous, and I'm like, my gosh, how long is this thing gonna take? And so, like, I'm trying to put everything to place. I'm researching, but by the second, third one got a lot better. But each time that I would put one through, there was, okay, I don't know what you're doing here with this one. Here's something you can do. You need to show in the video. All right, you need to crop the corners here this way, and then you kind of show in the video, like, okay, now I can do that. The next time you're like, all right, your outline's wrong. And so I don't know why this was the black outline and this is the white outline. So it's, and then when you would say it, you'd also say like, it's just like the little attention to details that those
Mm,
little things can make a big difference. You know, whatever you like, something small like that in a presentation can go a long way, you know, but, you know, you would do it, but explain the reason behind it, you know, as you're kind of making those edits and those changes about, you know, what you're seeing, you know, and
yeah.
then when there was something that I did really well, like my Loom videos, you're like, these are awesome. You know, you're setting the standard, you know, this is a really great idea. And, you know, then you give me suggestions about how about you add some pictures of your family on there and just kind of giving really good constructive feedback. And then I would do a video and I'd send it to you. You're like, "Mm, perfect.
Yeah.
You're right on point. You're right on point with your message." So little things that
Awesome.
I did that were good, but then you take the good to great, you know, good to
Yeah.
great, you know, we'd say G to G, you know, good to great. So going from, you know, basketball, we always look for a good to a great shot. You know, you have a good
Mhm.
shot right here. You make one more pass, we're wide open in the corner three. And that's what you're giving me. It was all day, you know, wide open corner threes. So taking my good stuff and just making them great.
Man, I love that. One of my favorite points of feedback that I get from clients, and you just validated it, is like, Jack, I love how you're just honest. Like you're just kind of
Mhm.
blunt. Like, I hope I'm not mean and blunt, but
Right.
hey, no, this isn't good. Like we need to fix this. Like this is
Right.
wrong. So I really appreciate that feedback, man. That's helpful
Yeah.
for me to understand. Outside of you landing the role in 10 days, fully remote,
Mhm.
75K, great
Yeah.
company. What are you most proud of accomplishing?
I'm most proud, I think, of the concentrated work, the purpose. You know,
Mm,
like I had concentrated work, you know, I was, you know, doing, you know, these online courses and I was concentrated and focused, but now there was a purpose and I knew, you know, that your results spoke for themselves, you know, like job average, you know, 34 days down to 32 days, 29 days or whatever the average is now. And I knew, okay, so now I'm grinding. The grind is a purpose-based result at the end. You know, there's something there. So I think that's the thing that's I'm most proud of is that my work was not in vain. You know, the work that I put in, even the work I put in before I got to this program led me there. Each part of the process has been part of this. You know, each no along the way was a no for that reason because it wasn't the right time for me to be in the place I needed to be.
mhm.
But here I was able to take all of that grind and work ethic and perseverance and not giving up and with a purpose because I knew, you know, sooner or later, you know, I kept telling my buddies in my text thread, you know, the dam's breaking. You know,
Yeah.
it's breaking. You know, I've got a chisel and you know, I got somebody behind me with some dynamite ready to ready to make it blow. And that's what I kept doing. So I think most
Mm,
proud of knowing that I had the work, but there was something at the other end, you know, to
yeah.
get to it.
Romans 8:28, man. God works all things together for good.
Yes, sir.
That's it. And every step of the way so far for you has
Hmm.
been led by him. And that's why you're
Yeah.
here enjoying the blessing. Well, before we wrap up, I just want to kind of hear from your perspective to help the other people out there because
Hmm.
not everyone's having success like you are. A lot of people are in the shoes you were in before Sword, where it's like, I'm applying a bunch, I'm barely landing interviews. And when I do interview well, I'm not getting picked. What's something specific you learned in Sword that you feel like if they knew about or they adopted or implemented would actually help them?
One of the big things early was the messaging in my resume, you know, and fine tuning that message, you know, looking at, you know, my career, whatever your career is, what are those metrics? What are those hard numbers that you can really pull out from there? You know, actual dollar amounts if you have an experience with that. You know, I had experience coaching and raising funds for programs and you know, really finding what those metric numbers are, what the percentages were, you know, percent turnaround. So getting those hard numbers into the resume, you know, and getting those things to stick out, you know, because my resume was good, but it was worried, you know, like I had a lot of my details of listing of everything that I did. But the big thing was communicating a message of professionalism, a message of, hey, I do have the sales acumen to do this. So I think, you know, that was from early steps on. It was
Yeah,
from that, you know, a big
yeah,
take. It was setting the resume up because that sets the table for everything else. And then it gets you that mindset because once you have that resume, now you also have some talking points you can reference, becomes part of your story, becomes part of your um, three P's, you know, whenever you create, you know, that in the interview process, you know, go through that the curriculum, you got the three P's of what you can kind of get through your star stories or whatever you want to communicate with. And now you have a jumping point of, you know, people want to hear these numbers. They want to hear these metrics. They want to hear these things involved. And so it starts with the resume building and then really kind of highlighting that and then using that continually to intertwine within whatever your stories might be.
I fully agree because a lot of people will say, well, I didn't really like do sales in my role. I didn't really touch revenue. Business revolves around money though. And I promise you, whatever job you're doing, you're not there because it's free to have you there. Like they are
Right.
spending money to pay you. So you need to figure out how you're adding money back into the business. And
Right.
every single role there is, I can tie to revenue. Even
Hmm.
as a teacher, like you're there to make sure that your students score well so that you're getting funding through the public school system or whatever it might be. Like in your case, you did a lot of fundraising. You're
Yeah.
either bringing money into the business, you're helping manage that money, or you're
Hmm.
keeping money in the business by customer success and making sure clients are happy and all of that. So you're right. Like being able to identify that and then use that once it's identified as a talking point throughout your
Right.
entire interview process is massive.
Yeah. And that I could, whenever the interviews came through, it just made it easy to kind of quick recall of boom, I could pull this one out, I can pull this one, and I went through my story from piece by piece of, each part. And I talked to one of my buddies that, was high up at a mortgage company in Indiana. And I told him I went through my hard close with him. He's like, oh, that sounds great. But he's like, what about this? And I was like, all right, well, that's my opener. Here, listen to my opener. And
Yeah.
he was just like, each time that I was telling him something, I'd start off with this guy. And he's like, each time that you got to the next part, I had my brain feedback, but then you did it. It was like, boom, there's a check. All right, there's a check. And then at the end, like I got done, he's like, boom, hired.
And sure
Yeah.
enough, here we are. You did it, man.
Yeah.
10 days, 75K, fully remote.
Yeah.
Ricky, I'm really proud of you, brother. And
Yeah.
yeah, man, God
Well,
is so good. He's so good. And I know you're going to honor him well in this role. And I just respect you for stepping up on behalf of your family
mhm,
to be the leader you need to be for your home. And this
yeah.
is a vehicle to help you accelerate that. So
Sure,
congratulations.
and dude, thank you for your investment, not only in me, but in all the individuals that come through the program. It's God's work, and He's speaking through you to so many people. And you talked early on about servant leadership, and God's given you talents and gifts, and you're using them the right way. And I'm just truly appreciative of that. My family's appreciative of it. So big things moving forward, man. Just really appreciate you.
Thanks, man. Congratulations.
Yes, sir. Thank you.